I settled in certain areas, and God was so gracious and he took me out, pulled me out of these bad scenarios and reminded me, my plans for you are greater than what you have for yourself. As I thought about the pivotal moments that made up my 20s, I wrote down 6 things that I wish I really meditated on. I wish I didn't really dismiss so easily. And the first one is this: you may have plans, but if you don't give God the steering wheel, you will crash. And this is huge, especially when you're entering your 20s, you're in college, maybe you're trying to find what career path you're going to go into, you're trying to find your community. People are talking about marriage and you're like, I don't even think I'm gonna find my future husband in this college. And there's so many pressures. Comparison can really eat at you during this time because everyone is striving for something. Everyone is trying to make a name for themselves. And I would say that when I was in college in my early 20s, I was so focused on my career and what I was going to do and all of these goals and expectations, I forgot to give God the steering wheel. And so he was so patient with me in that he was just like steering me in a different direction than I thought I was going to go in. And maybe you are in college right now and you feel kind of lost, and maybe you see so many other people that look like they have everything figured out. But at the end of the day, no matter what, nobody has it figured out. I'm going to turn 30 next year and I still feel like I don't have it fully figured out. And that is life, you know? I feel as if God wants us to not have everything figured out ever, because then we will become more dependent on ourselves instead of dependent on God. And this is something God continues to reiterate to me. The next point is this: breathe. You are a finite being and can't do everything. And this is another one that is easier said than done, but man, you can so easily feel overwhelmed in your 20s, seeing people get married, having babies, having big careers, all of these things, and you feel as if you needed to cross out these milestones in your life because of this timeline that we kind of put on ourselves. Whereas God says you are a finite being and you can't do everything. Like, I have time in my hands and I'm never late and I'm never early, and it is so hard for us as human beings to really be confident in that fact that God's got this, like I said in my previous point. And we tend to doubt God and his plans for us, and we tend to take it all in and say, no, I'm going to figure this out myself. I remember a few years back, I was in a work environment that was not healthy for me. I had a lot of anxiety, and I thought to myself, God, when am I going to get out of this work environment? I don't like this. Why do you have me here in the first place? I kept asking myself so many questions. And not only was I in a stressful work environment, I decided to be a high school leader at my church, and I decided to also be a young adults leader at church. And I was navigating a full-time job, lots of ministry work, trying to do all of this at once, trying to figure everything out at once. And God was like, what are you doing? You can't do this all on your own. A lot of the times, it simply comes back to just breathe. Just rest in who God is and give it all to him. You can't do it all. You can't set all of these timelines and expectations for yourself without giving them to God first. It is okay to have desires. It is okay to have goals and to accomplish great things for God's glory. But we have to make sure it is for God's glory and not our gain. And this is a prayer that I have been adamantly praying now in my last year of just being 29. I've been praying this prayer. God, I want to do all things for your glory and not my gain, because I realized that throughout my 20s, I was very selfish and very self-centered and thought about my needs, my wants, my desires. And don't get me wrong, I'm still figuring it all out. I'm still struggling throughout it all. But Matthew 7:7 comes to mind when I think about this concept. And it's all about asking, seeking, and finding. It says here, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, we'll give him a serpent. If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Jesus reminds us here in this passage that if we will seek him, we will find him, and we will be fulfilled in him, and we will want what God wants for us. And a lot of the times we can misinterpret this passage to say, oh, God's like a genie and I can ask him whatever I want, and as long as I keep seeking him, he will fulfill my needs. And that is a distorted view of what this passage means. What it actually is saying is, as we continue to grow closer to God, as we continue to know more of who he is and grow in that personal relationship with him, in that secret place, in prayer, in studying his word, in asking God each day, how are you going to use me today? What do you want me to do in this day? How do you want me to manage my time? Those are all key factors in growing your relationship with God. It is not until you do that you are able to realize, you know what, God, my goals, my plans, my accomplishments, all of that, I don't want any of it. I want you. And once we get our mindset back to where it's supposed to be in, we're able to realize, wow, the plans that God has for me are the plans that I want, whatever that looks like. And God doesn't necessarily show us the exact path that is going to look like. He likes to keep us in suspense. He likes to keep us on this roller coaster ride because he reminds us day in and day out that he is our refuge, he is our strength, and he is the one who takes care of everything. And we need to stop being dependent on ourselves, which I reiterate to myself all the time because it's something that God continues to remind me. We have to remember that we are finite beings, and we have to give it all to God because he is the one who restores our souls. The next one is this: don't settle. Don't get desperate. God has a unique plan for you. And this goes along with my other 2 points, but what I really want to emphasize is this: don't settle. Why? Because in your 20s, a lot of people are going to tell you you should be married at this time, you should be having kids at this time, you should be just growing in your career and having everything figured out. And the thing is, everything is revolved around what you should be doing and not on what God is doing in your life. And so when that happens, we start this whole comparison game. We start, feeling lost and confused because we're, like I said, continuing to strive and strive and strive. And then we settle. We settle for the wrong people when we're dating because we want to get married at a certain time, and we ignore red flags. That is not good. I learned my lesson there. We settle for a certain job that may be affecting us in a negative way, and maybe that is becoming our identity and is taking us away from God. Satan works in very conniving ways. He can so easily have us settle for certain things that are less than what God has for us, and we think, oh, this is actually what I wanted, but it's not what God wants for you. That is key. Don't settle. I'm going to emphasize that because that is something I had to remind myself that God taught me through these mistakes and through the regret of taking things into my own hands, whether that was relationships, whether that was certain jobs, whatever it may be. I settled in certain areas, and God was so gracious and he took me out, pulled me out of these bad scenarios and reminded me, my plans for you are greater than what you have for yourself. And so this is something I'm going to emphasize in this video as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you gained some encouragement in this video. And if you have advice for anyone in their 20s, leave them in the comments below because I would love to read them as well. And with that being said, don't forget to subscribe for more faith-based content each week. And I will see you all very, very soon for another video. Bye, guys.